this is not a sad ending video. There is actually a happy ending. Alright, if you watched the end of last week's video, I signed off saying I would see you all in Yellowstone. But I will see you guys in Yellowstone. Spoiler alert! Oh, we unfortunately didn't make it to Yellowstone. Yeah. Oh, what a mess. This video will detail how the end of van life came about and how it came about a lot sooner and unexpectedly than we thought it would. This is the final episode in my USA road trip series, and if you haven't watched that series, I'll post it above and you can click on it and watch from the start and see how we ended up here. When we left off last week's video, all of the footage had been filmed in October 2022, and it is currently December 18th, 2022, so we're skipping ahead a little bit, and I'm filming this now for a few reasons, because yeah, just a few reasons. One being that I really strongly debated doing this video. I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk about why our van life ended so abruptly and the way it did, because it was really disheartening, but I think it's really important to highlight that van life is not always glamorous and things don't always work out as planned, and that's okay, and things work out for a reason, just maybe not in van life for us. Alright, continuing on with the video. So, we didn't make it to Yellowstone, but you may or may not be wondering what actually happened. Once we left Arches, we made our way to the breathtaking, and I mean breathtaking, state of Colorado, to a small town named Durango, where we were going to do a train ride from Durango to Silverton and back. Once we returned from the journey, our plan was to head to Yellowstone the next day and make half of the drive up from Durango to Yellowstone in one day and the second half on the next day. However, us being very logical people thought, hey, why don't we do our laundry and why don't we get a shower in while we're still in Durango and we have the facilities to do so. So we arrived at the laundromat, which conveniently had a shower. Weird, but I'm not complaining. And it started to rain. While we were in the laundromat for, I'm not even joking, a total of 30 minutes, a downpour had started outside and our van started to leak. So not only was this leak very inconvenient for a bunch of reasons, but our entire bedding, the floor, part of our luggage got soaked. So it was a bit, very disheartening and not something we wanted to happen in our van before we went to Yellowstone. So what happens next? We tried for a few hours to contact the van rental company, but it took a long time for them to finally respond. And when they did, they were very apprehensive about helping us out, which was not ideal. Now let me just rewind for a sec and paint a picture of what we were feeling and what we were experiencing in this moment. And part of the reason this video has been so delayed in filming is because I was actually really angry at the situation and super frustrated with the company. Anyways, back to the point. So, first of all, before we even got the van, the rental company delayed our van pickup by one day, which meant that we had to stay an extra day in Vegas, which, if you know me or have heard me talk about Vegas, I hate Vegas. We were only there to pick up the van. We were only supposed to be there for one night, and it ended up being two, and that just wasn't a great start to our van life trip. But all in all, that's just one problem, right? It's not even a problem. We got a hotel night paid for. It's not the end of the world. No big deal. Okay, now there's another problem. So if you watched my video in Bryce Canyon, you would have seen that our battery had gone flat. In the words of the mechanic we brought it to, the battery was super weak when we got it, and it died multiple times on us during that time. Essentially, the battery should have been tested and replaced before we got the van. So when our roof started leaking, and we had to reach out to the company's customer service again, we were kind of over it. Once on the phone to the company, they were actually really hesitant to give us a refund and kept insisting on us getting it fixed so that we could continue our trip. At this point, the phone call is going on till 11:30 p.m. We are exhausted because we've moved all of our van stuff into our hotel room and we just didn't want to deal with it anymore. So not only are we really tired and really frustrated and just mentally drained from the situation, one of the main reasons we went on this road trip was to go to Yellowstone. It has been on our bucket list for a very long time. We planned most of our road trip around it so we could spend quite a lot of time in Yellowstone and then make it to Yosemite, and those were the two main national parks that we really wanted to hit. But obviously this plan was not going to work with a leaking van. And to be honest, by the time we were supposed to get to Yellowstone, it was going to be in the negatives and snowing, and that would have been extremely dangerous. So after this phone call and a bit of a frustrating kind of experience with the customer service team, we had to make some decisions. We made the decision to cut our trip short. So after a bit of deliberation, a lot of tears from my end, and just pure frustration with the company, we decided we didn't want to deal with the van anymore because it kept breaking down on us. And going into colder temperatures, we both felt that it would be a big risk and just not something we wanted to deal with when we were in the middle of nowhere in the freezing cold. We did send the videos of the leaking disaster to the company and asked for a full refund, which they eventually conceded to, I'd like to say, which was what honestly the least they could have done. And then we had to drive all the way back to Vegas. After 2 long driving days, passing the Hoover Dam on our way to Vegas, we dropped off the van at the rental company and thought that was the end of it. Nope, it wasn't. There was one more thing. It just never ends. The guy who worked at the rental company when we dropped off the van was apologizing profusely and was very nice, to be honest. He was like, I'm really sorry, this shouldn't have happened, etc., etc. And it was kind of a relief to hear because I don't really think we've been apologized to until then. But then, brace yourself, hold on to the edge of your seat. You have no idea what's coming next. This guy turns to us and says,
yeah, so a lot of the vans used to use this tape, but that tape meant that there were leaks coming into the van, and so we switched the tape. But the van we gave you still had that old tape, which is why you had a leak.
So, just to recap, when we were speaking to the customer service team, which is based in Australia, they had said they'd never heard about these leaks, this doesn't happen, and meanwhile the guy in Vegas was like, yeah, this was expected to happen, sorry you got the shitty end of the van. What? I mean, come on. At this point, you kind of have to sit and laugh, but we will never, ever rent from that company again. It's not worth it. It's not worth spending less money to get crappier value out of your van. I think if we do a van road trip again, we would rent a nicer camper van because it's just not worth the pain and the frustration of having to deal with a customer service team that clearly does not care about its customers. So now what? Right. Well, this is not a sad ending video. There is actually a happy ending to this, and I'm very excited to share this with you guys because the last couple months after the van trip have been fantastic bad. Despite our trip ending a little bit sooner than we thought it would, we did still get to explore San Francisco, which is where we were going to be ending up after our camper van trip. And my mom even came down to hang out with us for a few days, which is really nice because I love my mom and she's awesome. So what's next? Our original plan was to leave for Vietnam in early November, but we managed to move our flight to the end of October when our camper van broke down. So we could still spend some time in San Francisco, but not have to kind of waste time in the US without any plans. And after a very long travel day, we made it to Ho Chi Minh City. From then, our original plan was actually to teach English in Vietnam for 6 months to a year, but due to a number of reasons, we've had to change our plans yet again and we decided to go traveling for a few more months instead. So all in all, the fact that our road trip had to be cut short was a bit frustrating and a bit sad, but in hindsight, it kind of worked out for the best, and the last few weeks traveling have just been unbelievable. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It does mean the world. And if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so right now. You can stay updated with a lot more content. And I promise I've got some exciting stuff coming up in the new year. Can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Lots of love.